Bro, we invented fire, we painted the walls. If someone doesn't invent Wi-Fi in the next 5 seconds, I'm losing my mind.
We spend roughly a third of our lives working, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, 40-something years of our lives, clocking in, clocking out, answering emails, sitting in meetings, staring at screens, and we call this normal. But here is the thing. For the overwhelming majority of human history, roughly 95% of the entire time our species has existed, there were no jobs, no offices, no shifts, no bosses, no economy in any sense we would recognize today. Agriculture, which gave birth to the idea of structured daily labor, only arrived around 12,000 years ago. Modern work as we know it is barely 200 years old. So what did humans do all day before any of that existed? What did a person do when they woke up 200,000 years ago with a completely empty day and no alarm clock? The answer is going to surprise you. Because it turns out that prehistoric humans did not spend their days in exhausting, endless survival struggle the way we usually imagine. They had something that most modern humans desperately wish they had more of. They had time. The first thing to understand is how little time prehistoric hunter-gatherers actually needed to spend on survival. The Kungsan people of the Kalahari Desert in southern Africa are one of the most extensively studied hunter-gatherer societies in the world. Anthropologist Marshall Solins famously analyzed their daily activity patterns in the 1960s and found something that shocked the academic world. The Kungsan spent an average of just 2 to 4 hours per day on food acquisition, not 8 hours, not 10 hours, 2 to 4. A woman gathering plant foods could collect enough calories to feed her family for 2 days in a single 3-hour gathering session. A successful hunt might provide meat for the entire band for several days. They did not work every day. They did not need to. Salins called hunter-gatherer society the original affluent society, not because they had many possessions, but because they had an abundance of the one thing modern people almost never have enough of: free time. This was so counterintuitive to 1960s Western academics that many initially refused to believe it. We had spent generations assuming that prehistoric life was, in the famous words of philosopher Thomas Hobbes, nasty, brutish, and short, a desperate daily struggle for survival. The actual anthropological evidence told a completely different story. So what did they do with all that time? Let us walk through an actual prehistoric day. The morning typically began around sunrise, not because anyone set an alarm, but because the human body's circadian rhythm, calibrated over hundreds of thousands of years, wakes naturally with the light. Prehistoric sleep patterns, studied through modern hunter-gatherer analogs, were also very different from ours. People did not sleep in one solid 8-hour block. They slept in 2 phases. A first sleep from shortly after dark to around midnight, then a period of quiet wakefulness, then a second sleep until sunrise. The period between the 2 sleeps was used for quiet conversation, reflection, tending the fire, or intimacy. The idea of lying awake at 2 in the morning feeling anxious about not sleeping is a modern invention. For prehistoric humans, being awake at midnight was just part of the night. After sunrise, the day began with the fire, stoking it, warming food from the previous night, eating. This was social time. The band, typically 20 to 50 people who knew each other completely, gathered around the warmth. Conversations happened. Information was shared. Plans were loosely made. Then came the practical work of the day. And here is where it gets interesting. For prehistoric humans, the line between work and everything else did not exist. When a woman went gathering, she was not clocking in to a shift. She was walking through a landscape she knew intimately, identifying plants she had known since childhood, making decisions, using skills that took years to develop, and doing it in the company of other women and children. It was purposeful, skilled, social, and embedded in the natural world all at the same time. When men hunted, it was not monotonous labor. It required tracking skills that took decades to master. Reading broken twigs, disturbed soil, the direction of animal droppings, wind patterns, behavioral prediction of specific animal species. A skilled tracker was reading the landscape like a text, making constant decisions, applying an enormous body of knowledge. Anthropologists who have spent time with traditional hunters describe it as one of the most cognitively demanding activities a human being can do. It was also deeply uncertain, often thrilling, sometimes dangerous, and always meaningful. Neither gathering nor hunting looked anything like what we call work today. There were no repetitive tasks, no factory floor, no doing the same thing 8 hours a day. The activities required full human engagement, physical, cognitive, social, and sensory, every single time. After the practical work of the day came what might be the most important part of prehistoric daily life: rest and social time. Studies of modern hunter-gatherer societies consistently find that the middle of the day, particularly in hot climates, was a rest period. People slept, they groomed each other, a deeply bonding social behavior shared with our primate relatives. They talked, they played with children, they simply sat together in the shade and did nothing in particular. This was not laziness. Rest was built into the structure of the day as a genuine valued part of life, not something you did after finishing your responsibilities, but something woven throughout the day as a right.
The idea that you must earn rest through labor is not a human universal. It is a cultural invention of the agricultural and industrial eras, less than 10,000 years old. Evenings, in almost every documented hunter-gatherer society, belong to the fire, and to one of the most universal and defining human activities: storytelling. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner studied the Juhonsi San people of Namibia and found a striking pattern in how their conversations changed between day and night. Daytime talk was mostly practical: food, resources, logistics. Night talk, around the fire, was almost entirely stories. 81% of evening conversation consisted of stories. Stories about people. Stories about hunts that happened years ago. Stories that carried moral lessons wrapped in narrative. Stories about the spirit world and what it meant. Stories that made people laugh until they cried. Wiesner argues that firelit storytelling was one of the primary mechanisms through which prehistoric humans transmitted knowledge, values, and social norms across generations. The campfire was not just a heat source. It was a classroom, a community meeting, a theater, and a place of worship, all at once, every single evening, for hundreds of thousands of years. And alongside storytelling came music and dance. Percussion instruments, drums, rattles, clapping, are among the oldest human technologies. Bone flutes, dating back 43,000 years, have been found at prehistoric sites in Europe. Music was not entertainment in the modern sense. It was woven into ceremony, into social bonding, into the collective emotional life of the group. Singing together, moving together, experiencing rhythm together. These created the social cohesion that kept the band functioning as a unit. So what else filled a prehistoric day?
Toolmaking. Shaping a flint blade requires extraordinary skill. Striking stone at precise angles, applying exactly the right pressure, reading the grain of the material. Prehistoric people spent hours crafting and maintaining tools, and archaeologists note that the best-made prehistoric tools show a level of care and artistry that goes well beyond pure function. Some appear to have been made simply to be beautiful. Childcare, which in a band society was collective, not isolated. Children were raised by the entire group. Multiple adults watched, played with, taught, and cared for children simultaneously. No one person was trapped alone with a toddler all day. The village raised the child, literally. Body decoration. Red ochre used as body paint. Pierced shell jewelry, decorated clothing. Feathers. Flowers worn in hair. Prehistoric humans cared deeply about how they looked and expressed identity through personal adornment from at least 100,000 years ago. Vanity is not a modern invention, an exploration. Prehistoric humans moved. They knew their territory intimately. Every water source, every seasonal food patch, every dangerous area. Exploring, mapping, and knowing the land was both practical and, based on everything we know about human psychology, genuinely pleasurable. Here's what this all tells us about who we actually are. We think of busyness as the human condition. We think of the 40-hour workweek as natural. We think of leisure as a reward you earn after finishing your responsibilities. None of that is true in any deep biological sense. For 95% of our species' existence, the human day was short on labor and long on rest, social connection, storytelling, creativity, and time in the natural world. The exhaustion and time poverty that most modern people feel, the sense that there is never enough time, that rest is a luxury, that being busy is a virtue, is not the ancient human condition. It is a very recent cultural invention, one that arrived with agriculture, accelerated with industrialization, and has been sold back to us as normal ever since. Ancient humans did not fill their days with survival. They filled them with each other, with stories, with music, with craft, with rest, with the full richness of being human before someone decided your time belonged to someone else. If this changed how you think about your own daily life, drop a comment below and subscribe for more of the history that modern life has made us forget.